I'd like to welcome you to the Road to the White House Massive Open Online Course, or MOOC. I'm David Caputo, Professor of Political Science at Pace University in New York City. Today I want to talk about the New Hampshire primary results, the first in the nation primary, and as usual, New Hampshire delivered its share of surprises. As an overview, on the Republican side, Donald Trump ran better than his polls indicated. He was polling at around 30%. He's probably going to end up, these are figures as of Wednesday morning, still about 8% of the vote to be tabulated in New Hampshire, but it appears as if he will end up with about 35% of the vote. Governor Kasich of Ohio will end up with 16%. Cruz, Senator Cruz, of 12%. Former Governor Bush with 11%. Senator Rubio with 11%. Governor Christie with 8%. Fiorina with 4%, and Carson with 2%. Rand Paul, even though he's withdrawn, was still on the ballot with about 1%. In terms of delegates for the Republicans, it appears Trump will pick up 10, Kasich will end up with 3, and Bush and Rubio would end up with 2. On the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders has won by 62 to 38%. There's still some missing precincts. This is a much larger amount. The talk of the Clinton campaign was that they would be trying to keep it within 10%. Clearly they did not. This is a major win for Sanders. He picks up 13 delegates, and Secretary Clinton picks up 9 delegates at this point. That could change on the final counts in terms of the congressional district and the at-large delegates. It remains to be seen. I thought today it would be interesting for you to hear from the candidates themselves. Often these speeches at the end of a primary night are very revealing, and I would argue that in this particular case that is in fact the case, that the New Hampshire comments are very revealing. So I'm going to show 5 short clips, and I want to acknowledge Cable Satellite Public Affairs Network, or C-SPAN, for permitting me to use their information and their clips. C-SPAN's a absolutely first-rate as a source for information. Any of you who are political junkies out there, I'm sure, already know the value of C-SPAN. Those of you who don't know C-SPAN should seek it out, cspan.org. You can research various candidates. You can do a variety of things on their website. So let me begin with the 5 Republican candidates that I want to show you their nomination, their speeches last evening. This is another interesting example where you don't have to win in order to claim victory. In this particular case, both Governor Kasich and former Governor Bush claim that this is the beginning of their comeback, the beginning of their being able to do well. But what I want you to note in all 5 of these comments is pay attention to the tone and pay attention to some of the specific things that they have to say. And also notice something that I've been surprised the press hasn't immediately seized on, and that is a little bit of a misstatement on the part of Donald Trump during his comments. So let's begin with Trump.
I wanted to thank them, but I wanted to congratulate the other candidates, okay? Now that I got that over with, you know, it's always tough, and then tomorrow, boom, boom. But that's the way it is, and really, you have some real talent. We have some real talent in the Republican Party, and the RNC and Reince, we want to thank everybody. Thank you very much. Yeah, right. Well, I'll tell you what. What do we really want to thank, right? We want to thank the people of New Hampshire, right? Do we love the people of New Hampshire? You know, I said it, and I said it even a year ago. I said, I think I'm going to do really well there because I'm here a lot, and it's so beautiful, and I love it so much, and I love the people, and I said, I actually think they like me a lot, and then all of a sudden we started getting numbers in, and everyone said, how come they like Trump so much? But I have so many friends up here, and they are special, special people. So, New Hampshire, I want to thank you. We love you. We'll be back a lot. We're not going to Thank you. You started it. Remember, you started it. Good started. Came out, I heard the end of Bernie's speech, and I heard some of the beginning. No. First of all, congratulations to Bernie. In all fairness, we have to congratulate him. We may not like it, but I heard parts of Bernie's speech. He wants to give away our country, folks. He wants to give away. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let it happen. I don't know where it's going with Bernie, but we are going to make America great again, but we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. We're going to beat China, Japan. We're going to beat Mexico in trade. We're going to beat all of these countries that are taking so much of our money away from us on a daily basis. It's not going to happen anymore. We have the greatest business people right now in the world. They call me all the time. They want to be involved.
Okay, so I think in this particular set of comments, you can see Mr. Trump trying to do several things. One, thank everybody. Two, making sure that he positions himself in terms of what his essential message is, making America great again. And number three, already indicating what his attack would be on Senator Sanders, someone who wants to give America away. So you can see how he positions himself. The comment that I did not have on tape for you is where he says it's nice to be on top, even if it's just for a week, and then he catches himself and says that perhaps for a longer period of time. And again, as I mentioned, I was a little surprised the media didn't pick more up on that. So now let's contrast the Trump comments with the comments of John Kasich. Remember, Kasich is the second-place finisher here.
This is Karen Kasich, and the next President of the United States, Governor John Kasich. Something big happened tonight. And let me tell you what it is. Let me tell you what it is. We have had tens and tens of millions of dollars spent against us with negative advertising, okay? We have. We've had tens of millions. See, that's the old politics. That's the old politics. We never went negative because we have more good to sell than to spend our time being critical of somebody else. And maybe, just maybe, in a time when clearly change is in the air, maybe, just maybe, we're turning the page on a dark part of American politics, because tonight, the light overcame the darkness of negative.
All right, so you hear Kasich's point. Remember, he's in second place, less than half the amount of percentage of the votes that Donald Trump has. Yet he is arguing that perhaps we've turned the page, and more importantly, he is arguing for the end of negative campaigning. Even more so, he is arguing he has something to sell. He has fresh ideas. He has new ways to get things done. Interesting question going forward is, will this type of message reverberate in states such as South Carolina? Clearly, he needs to hold on till he can get into some of the northern states. Will he be able to? Remains to be seen. All right, let's go on then, and let's, we should have Senator Cruz next.
Donald Trump on an impressive win tonight. And John Kasich had a good night. But the real winner is the conservative grassroots.
Okay, so with the Cruz speech, you hear that third place finish in New Hampshire. He has not been able to rise above the 12 or so percent. Yet he is claiming victory for the conservative movement and clearly looking forward to South Carolina and also to the March 1st primaries, which are largely in the South, where you would expect conservatives, especially given the evangelicals that will be voting, conservatives such as Senator Cruz, ought to be able to capture a fair amount of the support among the Republican electorate. Again, notice the speech, however, upbeat, aggressive, talking about the future. Okay, now let's go on, and I want to next go to former Governor Bush. Notice it's a little bit over 10 minutes. And I want you to notice who introduces him.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you to the voters, the staff, the volunteers. Bush is back because...
All right, so who's claiming for Bush? Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina.
Washington can't do it. But I believe here in New Hampshire and in Florida and all across this country, if you give the power back to the states, they can craft 21st century solutions for education, for the environment, for transportation, for health care, for providing those that need help as it relates to breaking out of poverty. We can do this, but it's going to require someone with proven leadership skills, and I have those skills. We also need someone that can defeat Hillary Clinton in the fall. And for that matter, not just Hillary Clinton, apparently maybe Bernie Sanders as well. Who knows? Here's the deal. To beat Hillary Clinton, we need someone totally transparent, who's released 34 years of tax returns, who provides 340,000.
Okay, for the Bush set of comments, he's back in the race, in his estimation, headed to South Carolina. South Carolina is one of the states that traditionally the Bushes have run well in. So you would expect him to be able to run well there. Whether he will or not will be an important question for his campaign. Clearly, Bush is in through the March 1st primaries and perhaps beyond at this point. I'd be very surprised if he were not. But notice the move more towards the right in terms of being very critical of Washington and the inability of the federal government to get things done and the fact that the state governments have to do it. Also notice the pivot, even though he caught himself for a moment about Senator Sanders perhaps being the nominee, but what does he focus on? Secretary Clinton. Who else is focused on Secretary Clinton? Marco Rubio. Okay. Rubio has consistently argued that his campaign and his nomination would lead to a defeat of Secretary Clinton. You must be careful because as the race goes on, it may be more in doubt than people think. And you might be selecting the wrong person to run against. So it remains to be seen. The last clip I want to show you is Marco Rubio. This particular speech will probably go down in American political history as one of the more extraordinary ones, not in terms of how he says it, but what he says in terms of accepting the responsibility for the defeat and arguing that he's prepared to go on. He doesn't place the blame anywhere else. He fully accepts it, and he argues that this will never happen again. So let's take a minute and listen to what he has to say. Notice the Rubio speech is 9 minutes.
It's incredibly hard. I'm grateful to you. Now, we're still watching these numbers. We'll see where it winds up, but I can just tell you I know many people disappointed. I'm disappointed with tonight. I want you to understand. But I want you to understand something. I want you to understand something. Our disappointment tonight is not on you. It's on me. It's on me. I did not do well on Saturday night, so listen to this. That will never happen again. That will never happen again. tell you why it will never happen again. It's not about me. It's not about this campaign. It is about this election. It is about this election. It is about what's at stake in this election. You see, for the last 7 years, we have a president that's been doing tremendous damage to this country. Tremendous damage. We have a president who is trying...
Okay, in that particular very interesting pivot from his apology to his campaign workers that it is his fault, he pivots then into his core message, and that is that Obama and Secretary Clinton are responsible for the demise of the United States, and that this particular election sets the tone as to whether or not we go forward or whether or not the United States regresses more backwards. So I think Rubio, despite some people thinking he might be out of the race, I think he stays in the race. I think he hopes to do well in the South. Again, a lot will depend upon money, and I'll talk about money available to the candidates at our in the next lecture. I want to shift now and go on to the Democrats. Let's talk about them for just a minute. Just to recap, Senator Sanders with over 60% of the vote, Secretary Clinton under 40%, Sanders with 13 delegates, Clinton with 9. Okay, a very major win, a major win for Senator Sanders, and one that has the Clinton campaign on their heels in terms of trying to address their basic strategy and looking at things. It's never good in a political campaign after 2 contests to be going back and rethinking and perhaps even changing some of your campaign staff as you go forward. For whatever reason, I would argue that Secretary Clinton just has failed to catch on with the same amount of charisma and attraction that Senator Sanders has. And his energy, his staying on message, his refusing to budge in terms of talking about specifics, but being very general, has generated a lot of interest. And she has been the one that has not been able to deal with this. In essence, I think you have to look at least to this point in the Democratic primary, that it has been a battle between the liberal and the moderate wing of the party, and in both New Hampshire and in Iowa, the more liberal wing of the party has won out. Now, going to South Carolina for both of them, very important test. And actually, I would argue that what happens in South Carolina may be a bellwether of the rest of the campaign. The Clintons have argued, Secretary Clinton has argued, and the Clinton campaign has argued that when you get into more diverse states, states that have higher percentages of minorities and low-income people, that in fact she will dominate. That remains to be seen. Okay? And clearly for the Clinton run to the White House, she needs a strong outpouring of support among the black voters in South Carolina and along with the Latino Hispanic voters there. Same way in the Nevada caucuses. If she doesn't get that that turnout in South Carolina, her campaign will be in further difficulty, and I think that Senator Sanders would be in much better shape going into the March 1st primaries, but especially the March 15th primaries. So this looks at this point as if this could be a long trip to the nomination, but it may not be because Secretary Clinton simply may not be able to recover. So let's listen at their 2 speeches, and I think with Senator Sanders' speech, which is the longest of the evening, I believe a little bit over 29 minutes, you hear the same sort of messages. So you might wonder, why does he take 29 minutes? I would argue one of the reasons is he's got a national audience, okay? And he's trying to make sure that his message is understood. So he's using it not only for a victory speech, but he's using it really as a campaign speech, and he's repeating his similar positions. So let's go and listen to this for just a minute.
congratulate Secretary Clinton and her organization and supporters for waging a vigorous campaign. I hope that in the days ahead we can continue to wage a strong, issue-oriented campaign and bring new people into the political process.
Okay, so there you hear the stress on his major themes: rigged economy, the need to get more people involved, and also a reference to the Clinton campaign, in essence putting them on notice that I'm going to go forward with an issue-oriented campaign. We hope that you do. If you don't, you bear the consequences of going back to some sort of negative campaigning. So I think it's important for you to note 29 minutes, almost 30 minutes for the speech by the senator. The emphasis clearly resonating his campaign, clearly resonating that he's prepared to go on and be a vigorous fight. Also, though, indicating that the important thing is that the Democrats elect a president in the fall. So he's still leaving the door open that in case he doesn't get the nomination, he's probably prepared to support whoever that nominee would be. And the expectation would be if he doesn't, it would be Secretary Clinton, although in a week or so I'll have another lecture up in which I'll talk about various scenarios that the Democrats may face as we go forward. So now let's listen for a moment and finally to Secretary Clinton.
That I met here in New Hampshire, son, is paid less than her son